Hello, yes, I'm making another video on Velma. I already made a video on the first 2 episodes, so if you haven't seen that, go watch that first. Okay. You might be asking, Elvis, why did you do this to yourself? Well, look at those views, baby! Holy smokes! I haven't had a video pop off like that in a long time, so thank you. After seeing how much you guys liked me trashing this show, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do the rest. Why did I decide to do that? My mental health is at an all-time low. What is wrong with me? This video is going to be on episodes 3 through 10, and I'm not going to go as in-depth as I did in my first video. I'm not going to harp on every little thing that happens in the episodes, then this video would be way too long. I'd also like to make some clarifications from my first video. As far as the points that I'd like to clarify, the woke aspects of this show aren't the problem. It's how much this show begs for political brownie points from its audience that makes it unappealing to me. The inclusivity in this show didn't feel natural. It felt incredibly artificial. It was almost as if they made a checklist and they were trying to mark off as many boxes as they could. They also tried to make fun of everybody, but at the same time, they were not shy to make fun of white people or men. In fact, it's a good majority of the jokes in this show. When you start to notice these trends when you're watching this show, it gets kind of irritating and it takes a lot of the humor away.
That's some white people shit.
The tiny amount of humor that there was. I also failed to mention how weird it is that this show hypersexualizes high schoolers. Oh my God, Elvis, grow up. It's just a cartoon. Who cares? So you don't care? I see you. Let me see your license. Also, I know this video is super late, okay? That's just how we roll on the Elvis the Alien channel. I know earlier I said I was making this video for views, but it probably won't pop off nearly as well as my first video did. So honestly, I don't know why I'm doing this. While watching this show and taking notes, I had to pause every couple minutes to take a mental health break because it really makes you suffer. All right, let's talk about episode 3. This one starts out really great. There are 2 dudes intensely making out as one carries the other one down the hallway. I guess it was supposed to be shocking, and that's why it's funny, because that's pretty gross. And I'm not saying that because they're 2 guys. I'm saying it because just gross. At least this show's doing a great job of weeding out all of the bigots from the viewership. I think they went a little bit too hard, so they're weeding out everybody. This wasn't crazy enough, so they had to show these 2 guys again as they pass behind Velma later in the scene. Velma has another hallucination in prison. The show reminds us how pathetic Norville is because he begs for a kiss while she's hallucinating, which by itself is pretty alarming behavior. How are these 2 still friends when Norville is so creepy? And it's not like he's trying to hide this.
Should I kiss you like Daphne did? Without consent, I'll remind you.
He's being very forward with the fact that he likes Velma, but Velma just doesn't realize somehow. And later on, this show will try to convince you that Velma's a great detective. Yeah, you're doing a great job convincing me of this.
You know, a smart girl like you would be real Smith College material.
What really sucks about this show is that the animation is really good at times, more specifically when Velma's having her hallucinations. You can tell that the animation team put a lot of work into this show, and it just sucks that it was this show. I mean, it's cool that they got work, and yeah, they were paid, and they're getting a season 2, so maybe I shouldn't feel bad for them. Norville offers Fred therapy, and we learn more embarrassing things about Fred and his family.
Nobody watches me pee quite like Mother.
Daphne makes a very strange joke about being baptized on Ellen when Velma confronts her about facing her feelings.
Velma, please. I have 2 moms. I was baptized on the set of Ellen.
Baptized on Ellen, huh? Does that mean she was abused as a kid? Is that the joke? Norville wears a cardigan to prison, and in this show, it's like a sort of superpower that disarms the prisoners and makes them all open up to him. Yeah, that's the power of a cardigan, I guess. There's an all-girls fighting competition taught by Daphne's cop moms to find out who's the least vulnerable girl in school. So yeah, that's weird. Velma makes a very strange face, which is kind of reminiscent of Adventure Time. You know, every once in a while, they'll zoom up on either Jake or Finn's face, and it'll be super detailed and it's kind of funny. Well, Well, they just stole that, I guess. Although SpongeBob did it too, so I don't know where it originated. But SpongeBob and Adventure Time are so much better. It's just weird when I see something like this because I think like, oh, yeah, remember it happened in this show that I liked a lot more? And Velma just ends up looking like Wario or an Attack on Titan character. At the end of this weird fighting tournament, it's Daphne versus Velma. Before they start fighting, Velma proves how much of an asshole she is by taking out Daphne's journal and exposing her to the rest of the girls. But all she says is, Daphne goes to therapy.
Daphne is so messed up that she has a daily session with our school guidance counselor, Lamont.
Okay. And so the crowd cheers for Daphne. She kicks Velma into a wall so hard it destroys the wall and her head starts to bleed. But nobody cares and they all keep cheering for Daphne. This show is speedrunning, making every single character incredibly unlikable, but not in a funny way. You know how in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the main cast are very unlikable, aside from maybe Charlie and Danny DeVito?
Then why would you say something? Because I hate you!
The fact that they're unlikable is what makes them funny. They're despicable people, but their acting is also a lot better, and the jokes are a lot wittier. It's like comparing a Gordon Ramsay meal to like a McDonald's burger that you found half-eaten. So I don't even know why I'm doing it. It kind of speaks for itself. There are some really weird jokes about therapy in this episode. Like the guidance counselor uses a meditation fountain to manipulate Velma to open up about her feelings because he can't rely on his magical cardigan since Norville took it. He suggests violence at the end of their session, but it's not funny.
I was gonna say, go for the eyes.
Awkward and comes out of nowhere. I feel like the delivery was just bad a lot of the time in this show. For a joke to land, a lot of things have to work in sync, you know? The delivery, the timing. But in this show, they don't care about any of that. They just kind of throw really terrible jokes out there.
And did Gigi mention if there's more edible underwear? I'm starving.
Imagine a dartboard, okay? And this show is throwing 1,000 darts at this dartboard, hoping that some of the jokes will hit. Out of the 1,000 darts, there's like 2 on the very edges of the dartboard. Who do they have throwing these darts? I found you! Miss New Booty. So episode 4 starts with a massive yikes. The police department visits the school. They explain that all the victims that were murdered were pretty girls. So these grown-ass police officers make it their mission to protect the 5 hottest girls in the high school. So these police officers are effectively gonna rank teenagers based on their appearance. They're launching something called the Hope Initiative, which stands for Hotties Only, Puke Faces Excluded. Wow! Blow my brains out, please. The way I said that.
Wait, so a couple of middle-aged white dudes are gonna decide which of us are hottest?
Velma is chosen to be the person to create this 5 hottest girls list. So now a bunch of teenage girls are trying their best to get on the hot girl list, so they'll be protected from the killer. These girls put up sexual pictures of themselves on the lockers and walls of the school as a way to like advertise themselves as the hottest girls in their high school. They wear super skimpy clothing. One girl uses a football post as a stripper pole. And all of these girls are teenagers! Velma seeks out Fred to help with the top 5 hottest girls list because he's perfectly shallow. Then there's a really terrible joke about Mystique from X-Men.
Feminine Mystique. No way! I love Mystique! Is this about whether Jennifer Lawrence is hotter than Rebecca Romaine?
It's bad taste.
Daphne's moms lock Daphne in her room because they deem her too hot to leave. So they think their daughter is hot? I mean, cool, they recognize that she's pretty, but... A mother calling their daughter hot is never not weird.
And you're almost as hot as Donna.
Oh, you.
Velma meets with the police, and their new plan is to make the hot girls not as hot. And this is how Velma reacts.
So you're saying I get to actually release these girls from the shackles of the male gaze?
The shackles of the male gaze, really? Hey viewer, do you feel shackled right now? I'm staring at you. Do you feel tied down? And they call these ugly girl lessons Uggo lessons.
Uggo lessons!
In the next scene, we get the weirdest joke ever.
She's like our queen bee, and you're like a King Kong.
Fred compares the Mystique book to a 4-act drama released in 1905.
This was more disappointing than George Bernard Shaw's Man and Superman.
I'm sorry, but there aren't a lot of boomers watching this show. There just aren't, okay? And those that tried were probably turned off by the first episode and didn't make it this far. So all the people who did witness this joke were probably just staring at their screen like,
That's some white people shit.
Norville gives a super random breakdown of the history behind geode crystals because someone threw a random geode through Daphne's window. The mayor says this when he sees an attractive high schooler.
They are so hot, Daddy likey.
And then the cop says this when two girls are fighting.
Me, yeah. Cat fight.
This show is trying to tell the viewer that Fred is reading a book on womanhood. Fred doesn't know what a plate is called and he needs someone to cut his food for him, but he can read books? Makes a lot of sense. He can hardly eat on his own, but whatever, he opened his third eye now. And he's a feminist, I guess. He can now see women's inner beauty, and he's attracted to Velma now. But she's not attracted to him anymore, because she just now realized that he's gross. Wait, she didn't realize that before? How is that possible? This is the bright detective that's gonna solve this show's murder mystery. Makes a lot of sense. Did she forget that this happened in the first episode?
It is just a scared little boy.
Episode 5. This episode starts with the hot high schooler girls making sexual advances on the school police, who end up resigning because of it.
In fact, the officers on detail have all resigned, citing unrelenting sexual harassment.
Daphne is kidnapped by a mysterious figure. We later find out that they're her parents, dressed up as these hairy, goofy animal things, who are part of this underground criminal group of minors, or some dumb shit like that.
Yes, sorry. I'd be lying if I said you'll get used to that.
Fred is an overbearing feminist ally now, which is really funny because it's like the exact opposite of who he was before. Norville is dating a random girl named Gigi, and the painfully bad jokes continue.
Velma, give me the chance and I can help you with anything. Well, except filling in your ethnicity on a form. I'm guessing Samoan?
Velma hallucinates, and Fred says something about how he thinks the gender pay gap is funny.
Is it funny? Women make 20% less than men, and women of color even less?
Wow, very random. Fred fails to save Velma, so they have to use a defibrillator on her. Velma needs Norville because he's the only one that can make her laugh to knock her free of her hallucinations, by expressing how he feels for her because it's so hilarious.
You're the main character in all my dreams.
Funniest shit I've ever seen.
The best part is that Norville is finally in a happy relationship. He's no longer simping for Velma. So Velma wants to break them up so she can use him again. Wow, what a great friend. If their job was to make Velma likable, they failed miserably. It's horrible. You know how all band kids are losers? Degenerate freaks? They're all fat, tons of acne, hair growing out every orifice it shouldn't. You know, the weirdos. Well, this show makes sure to cement that stereotype in.
David calling Ellie a see you next Tuesday?
Maybe you should try getting a job.
At least this isn't a stereotype that the show made up out of thin air. One step forward, two steps back, I guess. There's a joke comparing band kids to theater kids.
And a marching band sleepover without food is like a theater sleepover without horny undertones.
To my surprise, they never brought up the horse group. I'm honestly impressed. Velma and Gigi have a flute off. What the hell is happening in this show? Why are they having a flute off? The mystery solving in this show doesn't just take a back seat during a majority of the runtime. It was flung out the window. Fred fails to deliver pizza, so he says this.
Well, I tried, but only got halfway there. That's just me living up to my label as a male feminist.
What? I mean, later the band nerds start going crazy and eating random stuff because they're so hungry. Why? Some of the gang drives over a manhole cover and it just pops out. You know how heavy those things are. Yes, I know this is a dumb complaint, but I'm mentioning it anyway. And you can't tell me. The funniest part of this episode, I thought you would never ask. It's when a cop runs over Velma with his car. Yes, that actually happens.
What are you gonna do about that?
Gotcha. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Daphne travels the sewers. They lead to some crystal mine attraction that was shut down years ago. Episode 6. This is the first episode in the show that feels like it's trying to tell a story. Keyword, trying. The characters stop spouting random nonsense about pop culture and the patriarchy for 2 seconds, and then it goes off the rails again.
People only wear fleece when they're looking for startup money or, oh no, going hiking.
Because of course it does. Velma and Norville make a joke about how Norville's a beta male.
Any issues with my own sweet daddy is foreign to me.
Really? Even though he's the one who basically taught you to be a beta?
Well, what color's your bagay?
I knew it was just a matter of time until they mentioned the alpha beta thing, and here we are, and it's just as funny as I thought it would be.
We're helping your mom's old boyfriend move.
Daphne bonds with her new weird underground gang family.
Really?
Velma and her father go out to eat at a strip club called Nana's Nipples. Velma randomly starts using one of the stripper poles to get her dad's attention. She literally says this.
I'm doing what every girl is doing up here. I'm just trying to get my dad's attention.
What the hell? Fred's dad is very angry that Fred is beginning to respect women, and believe me, it's very funny. Velma and her dad play a prank on Velma's stepmom, making her think that her newborn just jumped out an open window. Then Fred is seen about to kiss a digital version of Velma in VR before his dad stops him. And then Velma and her dad get pissed drunk on a beach together. Oh my god. Where do I begin with all of this? It's very in character for Velma to play such a cruel joke on her stepmom. Holy shit.
Approved.
Now I know that Fred isn't really the most normal guy in this show, but at this point in the show, he's a feminist ally, so he's supposed to be more likable now. And then he goes and watches deep fake of his best friend? Why would you put that in this show? You know, like younger people are gonna be watching this and they're like, wow, you can do that? You can deep fake? No, you can't. That's not a possibility, ever. Trust me. And of course, the only way that Velma and her dad can bond is by getting pissed drunk on a beach together. It's like the weirdest thing to put in this show. Norville is on a quest to prove that he isn't a beta male like his dad. As if he couldn't be more pathetic, like holy shit, Norville. Fred takes home a stripper to prove that he respects women, actually. Then there's this whole thing about Daphne's biological parents and how they were planning on using Daphne all along. But then her cop moms arrive to save her. Turns out Daphne was abandoned by her real parents when she was very young, and her cop moms actually saved her. If any of you actually cared about the story, I thought I might as well mention it. Episode 7. Everyone in town is convinced that the serial killer is literally a ghost. You did not hear me wrong. That's actually something they put in the show.
Because it's not a serial killer, it's the ghost of Dr. Edna Purdue.
That's how stupid everybody is in this town. They think the serial killer is a ghost.
For all you wondering why the police have not yet caught the serial killer, it's a ghost. And not because we're incompetent.
There's this town-wide party called Fog Fest, where people party in a fog or something. The show brings back mansplaining. Remember mansplaining? I know I do. Those were the good old days when people were complaining about mansplaining. Remember manspreading? I'm unsure if this show mentions manspreading. They probably do at some point. Who knows?
Okay, sir, I don't need your mansplaining.
And then the cop says this.
Only a true man would know the joy and camaraderie found in the surprise tapping of another man's testicles.
What? Velma disguises herself as a man and enters Fogfest. She's sitting at the very top of a giant drop ride. Norville says that he paid a worker down below to keep them in the air for a while. So Velma, being in a hurry to find the killer, climbs out of her seat and down the ride. And nobody on the ride says a word about it. Instead, Norville takes this opportunity to ask Gigi to be his fog queen. There's something called a fog queen and king prom, but in the fog. Norville and Fred both want to be Fog King, so they fight in a club. It's so dumb. Velma comes to this weird realization that aspects of her life are much easier as a man. So she takes the opportunity to speak authoritatively through a microphone to convince everyone that the killer isn't actually a ghost. And they believe her because she's a man now. If she was a woman, nobody would care what she had to say, but since she's a man now, people all of a sudden care. Don't you just love this show. It's so relatable.
No wonder men are so desperate to hold onto their power. As a guy, I can do anything.
Dear God, who on earth finds this funny? There's a montage of Velma as a man, getting all sorts of accolades just because she's a man now. Just wait till Velma finds out how much some women make on OnlyFans in a single month. And I'm not saying that because it's a bad thing. If you're one of these women, you go, queen, get that bag. But I think when a show makes a joke like this, it fails to take a lot of things into consideration, and it's very lazy. Wow, men are so much better! There's nothing about being a man that sucks. There's absolutely no nuance to any of these jokes.
There's something funny about you, more thoughtful and well observed, like a female-driven comedy.
Every single time there's a joke like this in this show, I'm expecting them to say, am I right or am I right? That's just how the world is. Get it, guys? Don't you relate? The white ones. They're the worst. I absolutely hate the white men.
I'd be super psyched to kiss you right now. Ow! That's my actual mustache, Fred. I just didn't shave it.
Daphne finds out that it's Velma in a disguise because Fred exposes her. And she says this.
I'd punch you if men didn't sexualize women fighting.
Why are so many of the jokes in this show weirdly political? Norville is named Fog King, but it doesn't matter. They have a run-in with the serial killer, and he leaves his phone behind. Episode 8. This one starts with some meta commentary on flashbacks. It's painful to say the least.
The strongest use of flashbacks on TV is when one character's flashback is intercut with another's.
You are totally changing the subject.
Fred is kidnapped by someone, and they leave him in a prison cell with the brains of all the previous victims. And they're in jars, talking to each other. In jars. Velma fakes a hallucination in front of Daphne to stop her from hanging out with another girl. Very normal behavior, Velma. Wow, cool. Gigi hints that she wants to bang Norville, but he's too much of a beta male to catch on to any of her hints. And this is his response when she asks him to unzip her dress.
I do this for my mom all the time now that she's perimenopausal and constantly bloats. Goodbye to her reproductive years, but hello to womanhood's beautiful final chapter.
What kind of a person speaks like this? No one that I know. Brenda's brain and Fred start bonding somehow. Fred starts falling in love with a brain, like he's attracted to her brain. That's how much he's changed. He doesn't need any skin anymore. That's how much of a feminist he is.
Smash.
He just wants the brain. Daphne, Velma, Gigi, and Norville get trapped, and Gigi says this about how the show will be perceived by old people because it's so diverse.
We wouldn't be stuck here like a 127 hours reboot with a bigger, more diverse cast that old people will gripe about.
It's so weird when shows make meta commentary out of nowhere and point this stuff out. It feels like a super cheap attempt at a joke. That's most of the jokes in this show, so sure. Norville has an emergency homing beacon, so a helicopter arrives to save them. Hilariously, the helicopter only arrives to ask them if they've seen Fred, who is also missing. You know, because he's a white male with a rich white family. He matters more. He's more important. The structure of this episode is meant to be a joke. And there's a bunch of meta jokes about how it's a joke.
Flashback, flashback,
flashback, flashback.
Now that feels lazy.
Yes, thank you, show. I understand that you know what the show is doing. Very cool. But that doesn't stop this episode from being near unwatchable. This was the episode that took me the longest to sit through.
How is it embarrassing to be considered the second hottest girl in school? Well, third if you throw in my mom.
Daphne learns that Velma lied to her about her hallucination and is very upset. But I mean, did you really have to learn about this to realize how unhinged and weird Velma is? And this is how they all get trapped, by the way. All the characters plummet to their deaths and the show ends. Yes! Party poppers, party poppers. Woo! Just kidding. There's still 2 more episodes. You guys heard that new Gorillaz album, right? It's pretty great. I'm sorry, I just want to talk about something good for once.
I'm feeling a light to decent 6.
That's some white people shit.
Daphne and Velma stumble across Fred and the brains. So yeah, they conveniently fall down this hole that leads directly to Fred and the brains. So cool. Velma's moms come out of literally nowhere and they save Velma from falling. And then they all drive away in the mystery machine, but they don't want to call it the mystery machine yet.
Now get in this mystery jalopy!
Ah, sweet. Man-made horrors beyond my comprehension.
Episode 9. In the very beginning, Velma makes a very strange joke about how white guys with clipboards don't cut it as doctors anymore.
But can we just let the actual doctor explain? Just being a white guy with a clipboard doesn't cut it anymore.
What? Velma's mom has amnesia, so they need to figure out a way to jog her memory so she can remember who the serial killer is. There is a halfway funny joke in this episode. Velma's mom asks her if she kept her grades up, and Velma has a flashback of all of her accolades being torn from her, all but one, which is future TV writer. So they knew this show was ass, dude. They knew it from the very beginning. And they wrote this in as a punchline to their own really terrible show.
More thoughtful and well observed, like a female-driven comedy.
I mean, you gotta give them props. That's some pretty great foresight. Velma calls Norville a virgin because he's competing in a fencing tournament.
Really? It's not the entertainment at a virgin convention?
That's tomorrow.
Very cool. Fred and Daphne are labeled as the new losers of the school for some reason. I don't remember why, I don't care. So they fake a relationship in order to be popular again. Velma lies about practically everything to keep her mother happy, so her mother will have an easier time remembering who the killer is. And it turns out that the killer was Velma's mom all along. Oh my god. Except it wasn't. Spoiler alert. Episode 10. In this episode, Velma tries to make sense of her mother being the serial killer. It turns out that Velma's mom was hypnotized into saying that she was the killer. Velma gets constant voicemails from Norville, and she never listened to them. It took him to literally leave the school for her to recognize the value in his friendship. What the hell? Velma being the way Velma is, she should treat every friendship like it's a diamond, because holy shit, for someone to withstand her bullshit, you gotta be a superhuman. Velma figures out that the pocket watch used to hypnotize her and her mother was made by Fred's parents' company, and the serial killer is Fred's mother. She wanted to replace Fred's brain with someone who was more capable to take over the company. There's more to it, but who cares? Fred's mother hypnotized her husband, and they capture Velma and decide that her brain is the perfect brain to switch with Fred's because she's brilliant? What? Could have fooled me. Fred's mom goes,
"Would truly appreciate the advantages of being a handsome, rich, white man."
And Fred says,
"You think we like being president of the United States 97% of the time? That job sucks."
So what, are all white cis males part of a massive hive mind or something? Yes, brothers. Thank you, white number 2942. This Velma video is going fantastic. No, Mr. White number 492. That's not what's happening. Thank you, Mr. White 9628 for helping me edit this video. Now back to the review. Fred becomes the Hulk or something. He gets really mad and strong somehow, so he breaks free of his restraints. That was a lazy way to free him. Dumb as hell. He then tells Velma that only friends tell each other the truth.
Only friends tell each other the truth.
I mean, Velma is one of the most dishonest people in the show, so it's pretty hilarious that he said this to her. Fred is so dumb in this show that his mom is able to convince him that she was possessed by a ghost. And that's why she did the things that she did.
It made so much sense when she told me. I accidentally dropped the gun and, well, yeah, here we are.
Norville shows up and deflects a bullet with a sword. Who's the virgin now? A stalactite falls and kills Fred's mother. Velma locks her dad, stepmom, and step-siblings out of their house because she prefers her mother. Just as insane as always, Velma. Glad to see you haven't learned anything over the course of this 10-episode show. Iconic words from Scooby-Doo like jinkies and Scooby are used in very weird ways in this show. Like they use one for the name of a brain-swapping operation, and then there's a random note that says jinkies on it, and it's a clue to something else. Norville is forced into weed jokes because the better version of his character is supposedly a pothead.
Have you tried marijuana?
What?
The show ends with a cop calling Velma a man, and then he's killed by some unknown thing that I'm not going to find out about, because this is the crazy cliffhanger for season 2. I couldn't think of a worse cliffhanger. No, I will not be watching season 2, unless this video gets like 1 billion views, and then I'll watch season 2. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please go to alienclothing.com, my personal clothing brand. We have a lot of cool stuff over there that I think you might like, including this shirt, and this this shirt. Those are pretty sweet, right? There's a bunch more where that came from. Hoodies, long sleeves, sweatpants, hats. You get the gist. Thank you so much to all my patrons that make videos like this possible. I love you guys. All of you that are scrolling right now. All of you are so beautiful. Thank you for giving me your money. I really appreciate it. It helps me feed my little doggies, which this show didn't include, by the way. Did I mention that? That Scooby is not in this show? Where the fuck is Scoob?
And wait, what did Scooby do?
So yeah, guys, that's my review of Velma. Let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below for those of you who have seen it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.